Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. I finally got to a flea market. Unfortunately, it started raining when I got there. There was a fellow who was selling a rod and reel combination. It was a Shakespeare rod. Maybe we can see it's against you, but it was a 9-foot rod, action medium, and it included this reel. And initially, the fellow was asking $25 for the combination. Well, anytime I see a Penn reel, like the Spinfisher, discount the rod completely, $25 seems reasonable. But I was quick to point out that, well, your bail is broken here, right? Well, I suspect somebody probably had a problem with the bail. It looks like it's been overly bent. This bend doesn't belong, so angled off here. And probably tried to take it apart, lost the screw, gave up on the reel, and when I pointed out to him that, well, it's just not functioning the way it should be functioning, how about a discount? Believe it or not, we settled on $10. So I went to the Mystic Parts website, I ordered the screw. I also ordered the little bushing. I didn't know if the bushing was inside or not. That is inside here. And for $10, I think if we can't make this work right, well, I got enough pieces and parts to make others work right. So I would not discourage you at all from going to flea markets, seeking out some bargains. I call them tuition reels. If something is beyond repair in it, well, you've learned, if nothing else, about the reel. And if you can fix it, well, this one's got a lot of things going on with it. It's old line, so it hasn't been used in a long time. It's got the broken bail. We'll see if we can repair that. A lot of sun damage. That's UV damage. You can't restore UV damage. But otherwise, well, I'm just going to see if we can't bring this down and around here. Probably will need pliers to do this. Take that bail off. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you like the art of reel repair, if you like to learn about fishing reels, if you enjoy kind of seeing these and how they come together, how they come apart, why they fail, those kinds of things. Well, if you subscribe to my channel, you'll see all those types of things and more. And you'll learn an awful lot about reels as I try to pass these along. Well, you can see that's nowhere near an arc of a bail. We're going to try and straighten that out in a little bit, but I took that off to see if the reel was performing okay. Well, you know what? It's still running nice and smooth. So we're going to show you how to take this apart, how to service it. We'll try and put that bail back together, and we'll see how well I did on my $10 investment. First thing I would normally do would be to take off all this line. Well, you don't want to watch me take off line for 5 minutes, so what I'm just going to do for the point of this video, I'm going to grab a rubber band here, and we'll just put that on here. Now, if you are subscribing to the channel, thank you. And if you haven't hit that notification button, go ahead and do that, because that's going to be your way of knowing exactly when I post videos. And you'll be able to choose whether that's something that you want to watch or not. All right, that button comes off. The spool comes off. And you can just see we got all grease and greening going on here. So this reel wasn't particularly taken care of. But credit to Penn and these reels of the time. They were made well, and they last. All right, so we're going to remove the 3 side plate screws now. That'll give us access to the housing. And normally I would tell you lay these 3 screws on your desk or your bench or your picnic table or whatever you're working on, and just make sure that they're all the same size. I've done enough of these, I guess, that I know that they're the same size, but we'll do that for illustration purposes here. I also notice there's an awful lot of caked salt and dirt on these, so we'll give it a quick spray with some penetrating oil to dissolve that stuff while we're working on the rest of this. The SS series means skirted spool. The skirted spool means that the spool goes to the outside of the rotor rather than the inside of the rotor. I've just put a little bit of penetrating oil on there. That'll dissolve that stuff pretty quickly. On these, you also want to check the back side of the reel. Sometimes, I forget which ones it is, but it might be this one. This is a 6500. Sometimes the main gears also have a screw holding it in on this side. In this case, it doesn't. These bearings weren't making any noise. That's a good sign to me that the reel was probably underused. Can't say why the bail got bent the way it did, but it obviously did. And now we just want to try and remove the side plate. Well, like everything else, it's just there's a lot of coagulated dirt and grease in that. And you can just see the same here. There's just an awful lot of old grease. But you know, old grease, you can fix that. And that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to rotate the rotor so that I bring the crosswind tie down to the low position. That way it gives me access to the two screws that are holding that in place. Now I like to take a reel that has old grease like this and flood it with the penetrating oil just like I did the screws to help dissolve those issues. This one's really tight. There we go. But I'm going to wait until I get that main gear out to do that. If you have a question on this reel or any reel in particular, maybe you're working on one and you're stuck, if you leave that question in the comments section, I will try to get you an answer to maybe get you unstuck or maybe clarify some questions you may have about the reel. With that, the screws removed, hold that crosswind block, pull up on the axle shaft. This one came out nice and easy, which indicates that it's not bent in any regard, just has a lot of old dried grease on it. And now we should be able to remove the main gear. That came out nice and easy. I'm putting these on the bench right now, but in a moment we're going to be putting them in the parts tray. I just want to take these out before I can go much further. And you know what? I got a heck of a reel here for $10, didn't I? All right, I think that's a 13 millimeter nut sitting there. And you can use a socket, or you can use the wrench on this one because there is no lip on the rotor. So we're going to remove the rotor next, just to get a look inside here. And this one has one wonderful feature on it. We did a short video on this one. It's kind of a double dog dare. You have an override here that's the click dog, and you have an anti-reverse dog here. And when this override is, well, this one's a little tight, we'll fix that. But when you release this dog on the override, you'll have a double dog on that in the anti-reverse. For now, I'm just going to put that right back where it is. We know that there's a little bit of an issue here. I'm going to squirt that down with the penetrating oil. And now we're going to go do some cleaning. We're going to hit the inside of the case with the penetrating oil, and we're going to get those parts with the penetrating oil. So much of the reel service and repair, well, at least the servicing side of it, is just taking care of getting the old dirts and greases off of there, making sure it's clean, and then re-lubing. Now, part of that, of course, is inspecting the pieces and parts. Now, we kind of did that with this axle shaft. We said it came out nice and easy, and when it comes out nice and easy, you know it's not bent. And with a little bit of penetrating oil and a paper towel, you can just wipe that down. When I complete my work on the parts, I like to put them into a parts tray. That's where all those pieces have been going. The parts tray is nothing more than the bottom of a fast food container. There's a lot of different organizing ways that you can organize your pieces and parts. Some people like to line them up as they took them off. That's okay. Some people like to put them in egg cartons and the like so they don't bounce around. That's a wonderful idea as well. There's commercial parts trays available. Some of them are magnetic. Some of the metals and fishing reels are non-magnetic. That's okay. But whatever organization scheme you have, just go with it. Mine is organized chaos. I've always been that way my whole life. I'm the guy that knows where the tool is on the bench, and can tell somebody it's on the bench, and they can be there for half an hour looking for it, and I can come down in a few seconds and put my hands on it. It's just that kind of a thing. But there's no apparent logic to my organization skills. That's a good thing and a bad thing. The bad thing is when I go to find a part, and for example, I know I have thousands of Mitchell parts, and I kind of know what big basket they're in. But if you ask me to go below that level, well, we're in trouble. Good news is I know what I'm looking for, but that's about it. All right, I've just cleaned off the grease on the crosswind block. Notice when you took that off, the orientation. This is not a symmetrical crosswind block. It has a high side. The high side was facing up. That's a good place to tell you as you remove pieces and parts, particularly on reels that you don't know a lot about. And I get those in all the time. Get them in from people like Scott, who send me these reels he's been picking up at flea markets that I haven't seen, or haven't seen at least in dozens of years, and haven't remembered how they came together or how they came apart. Take pictures, because those pictures will be invaluable to you as you go to reassemble, particularly if you've forgotten a little bit about, did I take this one out first? Was it facing left or right, up or down, and so on? You can go back and reference the pictures, and I'd be lying if I said I don't do that from time to time. I certainly do, and that's why I pass that recommendation along to you. I'm taking a wire brush now, and I'm cleaning out the channels of the main gear. I'm pulling it away from the gear, and I'm landing it on a paper towel so that it collects the grease. When it's clean enough, now I can go take an inspection of it. I want to make sure that the teeth are all crisp. They are. And I want to make sure that they're not warped or dented. And I want to look at it from both sides. I want to look at it top view, and I want to look at it side view. Make sure they have all of the points and don't have the wear. I also want to check the back of the main gear for the same characteristics. On the front gear, I did remove that bearing. I'm going to wipe off the excess there. And that one's ready to go. And we've taken 2 bearings off so far. I'm just going to soak those in oil. They're shielded bearings. They're not sealed. There wasn't any noise in these when I was working on them, so we're going to consider that a blessing, and we're just going to kind of put them in there, let the oil soak in and free those up. Main gear goes back in. This is the rotor nut goes back in. Check underneath the rotor, make sure it's nice and clean. It is. And we can just kind of clean that up. I'm using a paper towel. I always vote for going with the least abrasive of the cleaners and the cleaning mediums, like a paper towel versus a scrubby pad versus steel wool. There's a lot of dust and dirt. I'm seeing cobwebs actually inside here, which tells you it's been on the shelf for a while. The pole looked like it hadn't seen water in a while as well. And we'll just clean that up. I can go over here as well. That's going to be where we're going to focus our efforts on the restoring that bail feature. I want to take the one dog off here. These two screws go to that crosswind block. Don't lose them. Now we should be able to take the click ratchet or the anti-reverse ratchet and the anti-reverse dog off as a single piece. There's a collar underneath that. I put those right there. They need to be cleaned. And now I just want to work this dog. We know that it's a little tight. There we go. It's starting to loosen up. I sprayed that with that penetrating oil earlier. And I think we're in override mode here, right? No, now we're in override mode. Okay. One more little shot of that should clean it up. I don't like to move this mechanism unless you have to, but it can be removed if you want to. There's, you can see the old grease coming out of here now. It's coming out dark colored. All right, there's 3 screws on the collar holding down the pinion gear. Let's get those out. Boy, either my hand strength is getting less or some of these things have really been sitting a while. The good news with Penn reels is most of these are stainless screws, and those stainless screws, for the most part, don't rust in. But that doesn't mean they don't get tight from the salts and the other things that come into the reel from time to time. Notice the configuration on this collar. It is not a triangular collar. It's more of an oval. And there's two to the bottom, one to the top. It'll be hard to get this one wrong on reinstall, but it is possible. All right, I'm going to just wipe this off. We're going to put those pieces into the parts tray. We'll get rid of that dirty paper towel there. You don't want to transfer any dirts and greases and the like that you don't have to. Well, this is always the moment of truth. Can we get that bearing out? Huh. Chris is sitting there. He's envious. That's not necessarily the easiest bearing to get out if it gets stuck. In this case, well, my lucky streak is pretty much intact. I'd be good if I was a Major League Baseball player, I guess. I'd be batting a high average, but that's just kind of luck. I'm going to take that main bearing. We're going to do the same thing that we did with the other one. I'm going to wipe that down. It's got some residual grease on it. Let's get that off of there. I'm going to spin it, make sure that it spins nicely. When we did the test, it certainly did. Notice there's two sides. There's a Teflon side and there's the shielded side. The shielded side was facing up. That's the way you want to reinstall. Our pinion gear here is kind of the same thing that we just did with the main gears and the like. We're going to take our brush. We're going to clear those channels. We're going to inspect the channels. Nice and clear and clean. Wipe off both sides of this. And now it's time for us to just clean two more parts and reinstall. So this is the anti-reverse ratchet. You can see all the old greases just kind of flowing onto the board here. Important to remember what the downside is. This has a traditional old style forked anti-reverse dog. There's two tines to it. They go inside, one on each side of the click ratchet. And this is a friction-driven one. We'll show you that in a moment. And we had that collar underneath. That collar just picked up a little bit of dirt, so we're going to clean that up as well. All right, let's go do some reassembly. Most of the time you're going to grease the parts. I'm going to use Penn Precision Reel Grease for this. I'm not going to use it because it's a Penn reel. I'm going to use it because it's a fishing reel grease. My recommendation to everybody is please use fishing reel grease when you're maintaining your fishing reels. All right, well, we've been going through an awful lot, and we haven't even gone through what the whole call to action is with this one. The call to action with this one, obviously, was the bail doesn't work. Well, we'll get there, so just appreciate your patience. If you want to skip forward, you certainly can do that. I'm going to grab that. I'm also been doing this lately, putting a little bit of grease onto the outside of the bearing. It has no mechanical purpose, but hopefully it saves the next person who's doing the maintenance on this reel some time, and maybe their lucky streak can continue by doing that for them. All right, we should be able to line up the holes now for this. Sounds like somebody's trying to send me a text here. Turn that phone off. Okay. This is always the fun part. Me and small screws. Use the screwdriver that's appropriate for the slot in the screw. Don't go too small, because if you do, you risk butterflying those slots, and the next time you go to remove them, it becomes much more difficult. I'm just getting them started. I don't tie them all the way down yet. And that's because when you tighten one down, there still needs to be play in the others. And if you take the play away, you're going to have a hard time getting these in. I also just put a piece of a dab of grease onto the end of my screwdriver. Kind of acts as a temporary glue to help me grab that screw there. Thanks to whoever it was who offered that tip early on in the videos. I do appreciate that. Okay, this is the little collar that went on next. And we have our click ratchet and we have our anti-reverse. The click ratchet has to seat to the flat sides of the bar. Then our anti-reverse dog lines up with the hole in the case there. And our screw has a collar on it, so you need to be aware that that's not the answer when it's tight. You need to kind of push it around a little bit and center it up so that that screw, take the tension off of that, that screw seats properly and all the way to the bottom. If you're not in there, that anti-reverse dog will not work. When I'm almost done with that, I'll put a drop of oil on there. Again, fishing reel oil. Now we can test it. To test your anti-reverse, you're just going to turn it, and when you stop, it should pull back. It's in the on mode now. It will let you go. Wrong anti-reverse, that's the one for the click ratchet. It'll let you go, and then when you go to backpedal it, the friction is going to pull that dog in. So that's how the anti-reverse dog works on this. And yes, we did fix the click ratchet as well. Okay, the rotor goes back on next. But before we do, we're going to leave that one. Let's go over and do what we said we wanted to do to begin with. And that is try to fix the bail on this one. It's much easier to fix the bail with the rotor off of the reel than with the rotor attached, which is kind of why I figured the whole service might do well at this point. You want to remove the bail arm from the bail wire. Watch it, these are not stainless screws to the best of my memory, and these do snap off, so you do need to be careful with that. Alright, we're looking for the rotor now. I have the replacement screw. I have a replacement bushing. This bushing goes in here, but the bushing is fine, so there's no need to replace that. To set this, there's a hole in this bail arm right here. It's hard to see maybe. Just the same diameter as the spring below. That's the first piece that you want to line up. You're going to go straight up top, get that hole, get that piece into the hole. But of course you're off to the side now, so you need to push in and pull down. It takes a little bit of hand strength. Push in, pull down. And then we can take that screw when we do that. It probably looks like magic, but you push in, you pull down, and you get the screw started. This one has the same kind of shoulder as the other one did. It's going to fit inside the bushing. We're going to tighten this screw down, and just about when it gets tight now, we're going to put that same drop of oil in there. It's going to help to give you a little slide factor there. And then tighten it down. Now you've got a bail arm that comes down and flips up. I'm getting lucky. This has got what's called a hammer bail on it. There's no trip mechanism inside the rotor. When that bail arm comes over here, it's going to hit it, and like a hammer, it's going to snap it back. So let's go ahead and put this back on now. Notice I still haven't put the bail wire on. There's the tie-down collar goes next. And we grab our nut here. Sometimes you have to work from underneath, push that pinion gear up a little bit. And tighten this down. I need to pause the video for one moment. I'm almost out of the record time. I'll be right back. Okay, battery changed. Nothing much changed in position. Just going to go ahead and grab that wrench now and tighten up the rotor. Now we can give it a spin, make sure that it's working fine. That's got the click on. Doing what it should be doing. Very nice. Come on down, we'll just clean up the rest of that case. There was a little bit of grease and grime left there that the penetrating oil in the earlier cleanings did not take care of. We'll go ahead and take care of that. And I think this reel is going to be fine for fishing. I like these reels. My fishing equipment, a lot of people wonder what it is that I fish. Well, my fishing equipment kind of looks like the shoemaker's children. It's all the mean and nasties and the uglies that work beautifully mechanically. And not afraid to say that I don't mind fishing a reel that might not have the cosmetics to it, but I certainly mind fishing a reel that doesn't work properly. All right, well, you know what? Some of that UV damage might have just been old, grimy, greasy dirt. Okay. Let's take a look at this bail now. This bail is terribly out of shape. It should be more of an arc, and I'm going to use my hand strength right now just to see if I can't somehow get it started anyway. You're going to start with the dead end here, and I just think that that's probably where the issue is right from the beginning. I have a bench vise here, and these bail wires, well, they're bendable. So what I've done is I've done what I think is going to be correct. I've straightened out that arm that looked like it was way out of line there. Now I'm going to put that arm side in. I call it the dead side because there's no action there whatsoever. This is just a carrier for the bail wire. I'll tighten that down. I'm pretty much hand tightened there. I'm going to use the wrench just to tighten it a little bit more, pliers. And now let's try and line this up. And we are way out of line, as you can see. So you've got to remove, when you're bending a bail wire, you've got to remove the tension so that it bends freely. I just bent that off camera a little bit, and we're just getting a whole lot closer now. So this is the no tension lineup. You need to be over just a little bit more. You want to be a little bit careful with these, but you don't have to be totally ginger to it. You know what? That's very close. Let's take that line roller. Grab our little piece here. Put that back on. See what it looks like. It should look like a nice rounded curve. It shouldn't be all kinds of jagged or kind of hunchback and the like. Yeah, that's pretty much a nice rounded curve. And as I mentioned, this has got what I call a bang bail. When it comes over here, it's going to slap that post, and there you go. It's going to trip. So for my $13 in parts, my $10 initial investment, I've got a Penn 6500 for about $25, and whatever you want to put on bench time. We're doing the reassembly now. I've got the crosswind gear here. This gets grease on all sides. The back side rides in that case. The crosswind block runs on the front, and the teeth get driven by the teeth off the main gear. Before I put that in, I want to grab one of those bearings and get that in the back case. It'll be easier putting it in now. Those bearings have been soaked with the oil. They should be ready to go. Next up then is the crosswind block. We've cleaned all these parts now. Make it a lot easier to get it going. Put the grease in the slot. Make sure you tuck the one little arm under that free spool override or anti-reverse override. Next up then is the main gear. We've checked all those teeth. It's just time to apply the grease now. I use a paintbrush to do that. It's an artist's brush. It doesn't lose the hairs, but occasionally it doesn't hurt to check to make sure that it's in good condition. So what I do most of the time, at least once a day, but most of the time at the end of greasing, I will take a paper towel, pull it away from the brush, and that'll pull out any loose hairs that are on there. All right, we can put the main gear in. Now we want to take that axle shaft. We've cleaned the axle shaft. It came out nice and easy. Light coat of grease. Not too much, because when you put it through the pinion gear, if you put a lot on there, it's just going to squeeze out of the hole there. It's a tight tolerance. Let's bring that axle shaft down, and then align it so that the flat spot of the axle shaft is flat with this piece here. Now, that might seem elementary, but I had a reel come in not that long ago where somebody didn't realize that, and they tried to put the screws on for this piece in the with that rounded side out. They jammed it all up, and then they said that the reel wouldn't work properly. Well, sure it wouldn't work properly. When it got up top to the main gear, the protruding screws could not clear the back end of the teeth. And, well, it was time to send the reel in frustration, I guess. But make sure that the flat spot is there. All right, 2 screws here. We're getting close to the end of this. So I not only work on my own reels, most of you know most of the reels that show up on videos are customer reels. And if you have a reel that needs service but you're not up for doing it yourself, and the whole idea behind this channel is to teach you how to do it yourself, but if you're not up for doing it yourself, if you would like me to service it, please send a note to my email on the business card that follows. You'll get the information there about how to send it for service, and how I can maybe get your reel back having a second chance. Well, as I'm looking at this, this paint is pretty good. There was an awful lot of just plain old dry on it. There's one more bearing that's been soaked in the oil. I'm going to put the case on now. That was a nice crisp snap. On the inside of this case, you'll notice that there is a felt washer in this trim ring here. That gets oil. That's to keep the bearing oiled there as you continue to work on it. So this is the black and gold series of the reels. I believe this is 4th generation. So you had the greenies, and then you had the Z series, and then you had what I think was the 100 series. This is the 6500. I think the next one up was the 650, and then the 6500. I may have them backwards. I'm not quite sure. They seem to blend together in my mind. I have the cover for the other side. Go ahead and put that on. An easy way to service this reel in between your annual services, just take these 2 caps off. Squirt of grease in each, a squirt of oil in each will make that go fine. Here's your handle. We'll go back on next. Now I've got work to do. As I mentioned, I wasn't going to spend time doing this video pulling line off, but I am going to clean the top of this just to show you how it should be cleaned. And there's drag washers under here, so I left the drag washers to last in this one. Pull that clip. There's a round clip that sits in a slot. We should have HT100 drag washers under here. We do. There's a little bit of dirt there. And the drag washers are always a great indication of whether the reel's been used a lot or not. And what we've seen is that there hasn't been a lot of that. And we have a 3 washer setup, or 6 washers set up for your drag washers. The first one is a Teflon washer that goes on the bottom. Then you have what's called a keyed washer. It's got a rectangular centerpiece. These can go in dry or they can be greased. These are HT100s. I prefer to put a little bit of grease on there, wipe it down with my gloved hand, get rid of the excess, put that in. The middle washer is this hectagonal washer that sits in the points. That holds the spool. The other 2 hold the shaft. We'll do the same thing with this washer, put that in there. Last one up then on the keyed washer, so you alternate the keyed washer with the hectagonal. That one goes in the middle. Take that trim ring and put that back in. And all I need to do to take this fishing really is clean up the spool and remove that line and put the new line on. Looks like we're all the way down on the bottom of this throw. I don't know if that Teflon washer needs to be replaced down there. Okay, I think we got it. We do, nice and tight. Got some work to do on cleaning that spool up. Let's give it a test. And that's it, nice and easy turning there. Let's put that noisemaker on. There you go. Let's make sure we can trip that bail that we were working on. There we go. This one's ready to go fishing. So I think for $10 with a pole, a little bit of knowledge, and about $13 in parts, we got a reel we can take fishing again. Give it a second chance. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. To all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do. To all, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.